Welcome to the Colorado Lacrosse News Podcast, where we go beyond the scoreboard and into the people, programs, and culture shaping the game. Today, I'm joined by Brian Salisbury, the founder of and CEO of Backyard Sports Lacrosse. Brian grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and went through the recruiting process himself as an under-recruited athlete. That experience shaped his mission today, helping players from non-traditional lacrosse markets get real exposure and real guidance. Brian played college lacrosse at Baldwin Wallace University and later at University of Tampa, where he completed his master's in entrepreneurship and competed on a championship level program. Today, we are going to talk about what it really means to be recruited, what families often get wrong, and what athletes can take control of in their own recruiting journey.
That's awesome. Asa, thanks for having me, man. Pleasure to be here.
Great having you, and to kind of dive into your experience and knowledge within the kind of the unknown world of recruiting. A lot of people have guesses about what's going out there, but I would love to really dive into your experience, right? At what point did you realize you were under-recruited?
Yeah, that's a great question. The point where I really realized it, I'd say was between I'd say sophomore going into junior year. In between there, I think we went to a lot of camps, and seeing those initial September 1 commitments really started to make me think like, oh snap, like we went to all these camps but got nothing out of it, and at the time there was no me with my recruiting, club that I was playing for, right? So there was no, hey coach, like September 1 hit, I don't have any options, like what's going on? Like what are schools thinking about me? Like I honestly was going through the process thinking the more camps you attend, the more your likelihood of getting phone calls is going to be, but that was never the case. So I'd say after September 1 and seeing, commitments from all over the country, kids were going this school, that school, this school, that school. You're like, whoa, like, was I even on recruiting boards all this time? And we spent, thousands of dollars going somewhere that we probably shouldn't have gone or should have allocated some money to go somewhere else. So I'd say anywhere between that sophomore going into, junior year, September 1, I think was huge. But also the rules were a little bit different back when I was in high school. So I think honestly, there's a lot of things that probably aren't happening now that were definitely going on back when I was in school. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting challenge, and a lot of kids are still, and parents are trying to decide like what are the best routes for their kids. And I mean, in looking back at your experience and then thinking about kids and how they're moving forward today, what should they be looking for? Like what type of things should they be doing to actually grab coaches' attention and get in that spotlight? Is it clubs? Is it going to showcases? Is it reaching out in communication? Like what areas do you think are the most effective for these athletes?
Man, I really think that if I'm coming from a non-traditional habit area, I'm prioritizing my prospect camps and my showcases. And I'm not just saying that because I do showcases. Like I truly believe that's how I got picked up. Like I went to a camp up at Ohio State that had Division I, Division II, Division III schools. Ultimately, I was picked up by a Division III program, and the rest is history from there. But I think a lot of times kids think, oh, I'm going to play for this club, I'm going to be fine. We're going to go to all these tournaments. But in your mind, and most parents don't know this, but they're going to tournaments that have no scouts, and that's not okay, because at the end of the day, you're paying club lacrosse to get seen by college coaches. But if there's no scouts there watching the kids, then what are you paying for? You're just playing rec lacrosse. So I think a lot of parents go wrong. I think they need to do a lot more homework on the clubs they're researching and who they're playing for. I think especially, when you're talking about these recruiting clubs in particular, you need to go with the ones that have the history and the traction of, hey, here's the visibility that we're going to have. This is why, these are what our sidelines look like. Oh, this is our recruiting director. She does this. She's full-time. He or she is full-time. I think that's another thing. Again, sometimes directors try to do, you can't be the club director and be the recruiting coordinator and be the coach for the 28s and be the person who does all the logistics and travel. Like if they are doing all those things, they're slacking in one area or another. And I'm telling you, it's probably recruiting. So I wouldn't go with that club. That's
very,
just my
very interesting. So when you're looking at clubs, you gave some points of things that you should highlight, and we're gonna go down the club tangent here now.
Yeah.
So if we're going down this tangent and we're looking and you're looking and you're saying that they should make sure that they have, a specialist in recruiting. They should have these, who's coaching and their connections, their knowledge, probably their experience and how many players they've placed and committed over the years is valuable.
For sure.
Not everybody can afford that option because some of those clubs tend to be the higher cost clubs.
Bingo.
So now with cost of club being a barrier, what should parents and players be looking at when looking at clubs? Like what should be, if you're like, okay, I have to play club lacrosse to be seen, because that's the mindset of a lot of players. What should you be looking and being like, okay, this club checks those boxes? And at what point should you make that commitment?
Yeah. I think personally, if you're playing travel lacrosse, in your middle school, elementary age, I think that's really a waste of money because there's truly no reason to go to recruiting tournaments or recruiting national middle school camps. I think that's the biggest, money grab of all time. It's like, yeah, this is a national middle school recruiting camp. They can't even recruit these kids. So I think a lot of times, parents like enjoy your youth, save your coins because you're going to need them for that. I'd say sophomore, junior year when you're going to be probably spending the most amount of your money on your recruiting. Like I said, it's nothing wrong with playing club lacrosse young, but again, the mold for playing club lacrosse when you're young is to get that foundation to set yourself up for success when you're on the recruiting trail in those later years. And I know a lot of clubs might say, oh, if you're not in my farm system when I'm in elementary school, I can't just wake up and take care of you, come your recruiting year. And I get both routes, but at the end of the day, like, if you're selling these parents on, they're going to play Division I dreams and their kids in the 5th grade, 6th grade, that's not probably going to be the case 10 years down the road when it does matter. Right. If I'm a parent, I'm looking at, where are they going regionally? I think that sometimes is a great place to start. Like, hey, we're going to hit up the Colorado shootout, the Western shootout. We're going to the Florida, smash tournament. Those are fun things. And I would limit them too. I wouldn't go to if they're doing 6, 7, 8, 9 tournaments in a year, I think it's a lot. I think 3 in the summer is perfect, and you should have fun as a kid because with the moment you get into my world or our world, it gets to be a lot. And I think you can get burned out fast if you're just going to every single thing and all your youth years are basically all recruiting years because you're just spending all that money and just going all over the country. So that's my opinion. I think kids should prioritize having fun, playing multiple sports. If you like to play, even band, all those things. Enjoy the things that you make you. Lacrosse is gonna come. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love the multi-sport athlete. I think that's been a bigger push. I think even Charlotte North recently did an interview, and she said she played every sport that she could get her hands on. And I mean, you look at even like Wayne Gretzky. If we look at a different sport, he was a lacrosse player. He was a hockey player. He did all sorts of things. He loved hockey, and it was the love for that sport that drove him through. But he was a multi-sport athlete. Charlotte North, her love for lacrosse drove her through, but she was a multi-sport athlete. And that's a huge piece to remember for a lot of younger parents, I believe. Now, we've talked a lot about the responsibility of the club and what you want from the club. How much of that responsibility falls on club and how much falls on the athlete themselves in the recruiting process and their parents? Like who should be owning those aspects?
Man, it's a loaded question. I think here's 2 things. One, if you're relying, I said this other day on a video, your club lacrosse is a tool. It can't be the strategy, it can't be, we're going to go, and they're going to lean on our club coach to get us to go to Division I lacrosse. Like, no, like you guys as a family, you got to have a plan together and say, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. We got our club schedule. We're going to go to those things. We're going to commit to those. But we're also going to do this on our own. And we're going to do our own homework to get seen as well, too. Because I'm telling you, you can't, it's like relying on somebody to take care of you, and you don't know what the ending's going to be, but you trust this person enough to get you to that point. Like at the end of the day, you still got to do your own part. You got to send your emails. You got to, get out there and outreach and also, get in touch with these coaches. So again, your club director can do only so much, but also you got to think your club has an A team, a B team. Technically, both are on the same timeline because that's what you sold them on, back when they were coming to sign up for your team. So you might have anywhere from 18 kids per roster or more, that's a lot of kids. And there's one director, that's not much time with your director. So I tell parents all the time, like, look, if you can have your own type of plan, but also you got your club, that's good. It's two-edged sword. And again, maybe your club director has an A and a B team. There's two people on two different teams. That's even better. More time for you. But a lot of times, most of these clubs carry one person and they do everything. So that's my 2 cents with the parents. So it's a dual responsibility. I can't sit there and say it's the club director's fault, and they say, oh, the club didn't do their part in research and outreach to schools. Yes, that's super important, but also at the same time, if you weren't getting those answers and you continue to not get those answers through the summer, and then you continue to not get those answers post September 1, at some point it's on you for like just not doing anything. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, very, very fun. A lot falls on the athlete as well as the parents on trying to be on top of things and be on top of that recruiting process, including timelines and what's coming up. With that being said, you talked about emails, right? That's a good one. Emails are huge. How many emails should people be saying? You see all these videos online where people are like, you should be sent, like there's tons of recruiting experts online. And let's kind of cut through all the BS. How many emails should you be sending? I have seen anywhere you should be spending 50 to 100 emails to coaches, which to me seems like a little, like a lot and a lot of management.
Yeah, I personally, you want my honest opinion, and this is just, I don't think these coaches read their emails. I really don't. I don't think college coaches have the time. I think they read a few. I think they try to get back to people, and again, I can say this because I work with them, but at the same time, I'm also on the sports recruits pages, and I see my kids sending emails over and over and over, and there's nothing. And it's not to say the coaches, not ignoring them, but at the same time, these coaches don't have time to read 1,000 emails a day. They have full teams, full schedules, a family at home. Some might be first-time moms, some might be first-time dads. So there's a lot that goes into it outside of the email piece. So again, for my kids, I tell them, look, like send your email before the camp, send an email after the camp. There's no sense in sending your spring, highlight mid-season tape. I think that's a waste of time. I think, again, and then also another piece that I won't tell too much of my secret sauce, but I don't think sending essays about who you are to coaches is a good strategy. So, coach, you do XYZ, like save that for the visit. That's when it's time to talk about you. Your email to the coach needs to be, hey, coach, thanks for coaching me up at Florida Futures. Here's a little bit about me. Bullet points, guys. 7. This is what school I go to. This is the club team I play for. This is my GPA. This is XYZ. It doesn't need to be some long email because I can read that on my phone real quick and make a mental note. But at the same time, you sending a Bible, now I got to sit back and I'm like, am I going to read all this? Like, no, I'm probably not. You're just wasting your time. And also makes the way faster for you. But I get it. Some coaches believe, hey, make every email different. This is copy paste. But at the end of the day, like 9 times out of 10, they're probably not even going to read that email. So the fact that you just send something I think is good enough. And then your recruiter needs to come in and, really get that real feedback for you. If that's the school you're shooting for. And also sending tournament emails before is a waste of time too. Club schedules, they don't read that at all. I'm telling you. I don't think coaches look at that either, but some do. I personally don't, because I've been in the tents before and I know my kids send emails and there's never been a coach there.
Yeah, having been on the back side of the recruiting world and kind of seeing it, a lot of these staffs are very small. Most people don't realize it's a lot of these recruiting advice videos I feel online are not lacrosse specific. They are football programs, they're baseball programs, they're softball programs, there's tennis programs. There are very established programs that have been around for a while. Lacrosse is still a newer sport. If we got to realize that there's D1 programs that this is their first season as a D1 program, right? And these coaching staffs are actually relatively small. You look at some schools, they have 3 coaches on their program if they're lucky. And there's the head coach, there's 2 assistants, and those assistants are not full-time employees. They are part-time employees that are helping with the process, and they can do as much as they can do. It really depends on how much flexibility and availability they have.
Right.
So I think that's a really important thing that you bring up about the emails, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the big challenge, if people are not seeing emails and that is not your best route to getting seen, going to different recruiting camps and showcases can be beneficial with your club or independently. What else can you do to get seen? Like, what is the main area where you can be like, okay, where can I put out, something being like, hey, I love your school. I want to go here. And here's my, my awesome highlight reel that I spent all this money or had my best buddy who's going to be, future ESPN editor put together for me.
Sure. Yeah, I think another great way to be seen, social media is as crazy as that sounds. I'm telling you, like when we released our blueprint cards to kids that, come on board for us, I have literally had coaches DM me and say, "Hey, what's up with this kid? I've seen this kid before." And like them being online scrolling one random night jogs a memory of saying, "Wait, I remember that kid. Let me hit up Brian and see if he can give me a read on this kid." Because I've had that happen before with multiple kids, especially closer to August when we're, really pushing the athlete promotion for that whatever class is coming up. So I think social media is a big piece. Tagging schools is always great. Again, if you can, I don't think you should tag every school in the country, but make it targeted, 3 or 4 schools on a post. You never know who might see, because at the end of the day, you're right. College lacrosse is a non-revenue generating sport. Most of these staffs are way understaffed for the amount of work that kind of goes into the recruiting scene. Because again, an assistant coach that's 23, 22 years old might not have the maturity to be able to understand like these kids and what they're looking for and how important it is for a response. Because at the end of the day, this is all about communication, and there's a massive communication gap in the recruiting scenes. With that being said, you got to be able to, be strategic, but also know, hey, look, like most of these staffs are under recruited, or understaffed. So a lot of them don't have a primary person that it only handles the recruits. Like football, it has 8 different scouts for, whatever room you're trying to get in touch with. So it's a lot easier. But even then there's challenges with that too. So like I said, it's a double-edged sword, but I think if you're trying to get seen from a visibility standpoint outside of the showcases and camps tournaments, social media always is just, you never know what can happen from that. So always promote yourself online. I think that's a good.
Yeah, I think that's extremely valuable advice. I think that the interesting thing as well is that I see with a lot of young athletes, they have like a lacrosse specific account, which is great, but they're not as active on there as I feel like they should be. And
Yes.
it's okay to post other content besides lacrosse on those.
Yeah. 100%.
I
I think a
mean,
lot of, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I think that, from my experience and my knowledge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of coaches aren't just looking for lacrosse. They're looking for your personality. They're looking for the type of person you are. They're looking for rounded individuals. If you're
Yes.
doing a spelling bee, they want to see you're up there and that you're doing well academically.
Bingo.
All those different aspects. If you do theater, if you do dance, if you run track, if you do these other sports, you play basketball, those type of highlights I think can be beneficial on that platform as well. And making it public. The number of
Yes.
kids that have profiles that are pushing lacrosse content or their sports content that is private, it astonishes me. You are not going to get seen.
You are not again, like, listen, like, and that you got to be able to promote yourself. And the same thing with us. Like, look, you can find anything on me. I'm as public as it gets. So you can find, who we are, what we do. But you're right. Especially when I tell kids this, when they come closer to, August, I tell my whatever class is going to, like, look, make sure your social media is in check. Make sure everything's like up to par, your TikTok, all those things, just things you need to know that need to be, up to speed, because coaches do background checks and they want to see, who you are outside of lacrosse. Because I know for a fact one of my recruits, it was August, gets a follow from the head coach at Oregon, and they're like doing their homework, because if they're going to offer a kid, they want to make sure they're getting the right kids that, are an image of the program. Because the moment you commit to that school, you're a reflection of that program and that coach. So, your social media needs to be public. And if you're not public and you're private, or you have a weird like burner account name or something like that, it's just, those things, that's just extra fluff that you don't need to have. So yeah, I think social media is a massive, massive piece to, especially nowadays.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All right, so I'm going to dive into something that I think is a really interesting conversation, and something that I actually had a parent reach out to me the other day, and they were like, "Oh, I'm really excited because this coach is checking out my daughter's online profile, and they're looking at their online profile. When do you know that you are actually being recruited?"
I would say for how I know, well, obviously I have the showcases to kind of be able to like that's a little bit of a leg up for most people. Like a lot of people are just going off of like so and so coach called them. I don't have that luxury. Well, it depends on the coach, right? But for the most part, if a school is calling about a kid, to the club director or whatever throughout the summer, that means they're 9 times out of 10 going to recruit that kid for the most part. Now, again, a social media follow. I know this happened. One of the kids that we went to Vanderbilt, Northwestern was kind of like they were doing their research and following her and liking different things. So I that kind of flags me and says, hey, look, like I think this school is checking you out. They're trying to get a feel for who you are, outside of your sports recruits page. Now, again, also another good tip, typically if a school views you, I'd say 10, 15 times prior to like September 1, like, and I'm talking about like August. I'm not talking about one day, 2 random days. Oh, they dinged me here. I'm talking about 15, like they viewed your profile, they viewed like 100. It's very strategic, right? And that's how I kind of know, okay, let me call this school because I think there might be something they're trying to do or get an idea for this kid. And most of the time, I'm pretty much right. But your view count tends to go up super high, for certain programs that are going to call you September 1. So that's a good indicator for who's recruiting you. But also, and this is something I just should definitely tell people like, look, you're not going to have Northwestern, Florida State, and, some of these other programs and then have a bunch of like random D2 schools. Like the schools that are recruiting you are going to be in the same type of bubble. I know with some of my kids, when she was going to Oregon, it was Stony Brook, Cal, I mean, North James Madison. It was a variety of different programs relatively in the same type of bubble, but also talent level. And again, there were a couple one-offs here and there, but you're not going to have, an FSU and then have just a bunch of other random deets. Like it's going to make everybody's recruiting everybody, right? And so most times I attend the same schools are going to be looking at you as another school that's in the same type of talent bubble. So that's my other indicator for
That's
how I know.
that's a
Yeah.
really good little tidbit there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're going to fit into a certain mold. I think the other thing to look at and to be aware of is you talked about those clicks going up with the portal and that being a part of NCAA sports now. It's
Hmm.
changed things drastically. But these coaches are now looking at their current roster, they're looking at the portal, and they're looking at recruits and trying to figure out where everybody fits. So
Hmm.
if they're repeatedly looking at your profile, it's probably because they're trying to figure out where you can fit and how you fit into their program.
Their system, right, man, and that's another great point. Like I said, that's why I tell kids on the recruiting, when you go on these visits and they ask you, "Can you play defense for us?" and you flat out say no, why would you say that? Like, you might have to do different things to get in a room, right? And again, everybody wants to get the red carpet rolled out. Oh, you're going to be a starting attacker the moment you step foot on campus. That's the 0.01%. Most times out of 10, you're going to play a different position, prior to getting the position you want. If you're like a midfielder, right, you might be a midi and say, hey, look, we're going to bring you in as a defender because we need more defenders. But as time goes on throughout your journey, you'll be able to play midfield. And it might be right away. You never know. You go there and ball, you might get moved. So I always tell kids, look, like you might have to come in and fit within. You might have to do what the roster needs are just to get what you want for the meantime. But again, it's no perfect set in stone answer. No, I got a lot of kids that are going to play different positions at the school age. They just it is what it is. You earn your keep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, prove that you belong there and that you can actually play at that level.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and
Team first.
team first, right? It is a team sport. So that makes me think of something else. When you're looking at schools and you're trying to make that decision, in your opinion, like it's really easy to go, all right, oh wow, Northwestern's recruiting me, or like BC's recruiting me, right?
Yeah.
looking at those schools, the number of players that are going to go in as a freshman and start, like you said, is it is very far and few between. I mean, you look at, UNC has some Colorado players that were miraculously started as freshmen and were impact players on the team.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, wow, I'm going to be the next, Eliza Osborne, or, I'm going to be the next next Betty, crushing it and starting as a freshman goalie. But realistically, that's not going to happen to a lot of players. A lot of players are going to go to these top tier teams and not start. Should in your opinion, like this is a question that I think a lot of players should consider. When is it valuable to say, okay, I maybe be recruited by one of these top tier programs, but is it more valuable for me as a player, as an academic, and my future life to go and maybe go play for a good top D2 school or a top D3 school, and I can then know that I can actually walk onto that program and be immediate impact?
That's a phenomenal question, and I think a lot of kids miss the mark with this one because they get so caught up in the Instagram 50-second blast post that it doesn't even matter what the situation is. I've had kids tell me flat out, I'd rather go there and sit the bench for 4 years than go play in a Division II or a mid-major Division I. I'm like, that doesn't even make any sense, and I get it. A lot of parents in their mind imaged, right? But what they forget is, as soon as they get on campus and then you don't travel and you don't play and you barely practice and your locker is outside the locker room, which a lot of programs, you might think that you're inside the locker room, but you got to earn your keep to get inside. So if you're a practice player and you're getting dressed in the hallway, that's not fun. That's not fun. So I think a lot of kids miss the mark with that, especially in their recruiting visits, and they don't understand, exactly that coach is asking of them. Like they're at this, and they'll allude to it. Like a lot of times, coaches will say, "Hey, look, like you come in, like you're probably not going to play, but we'll give you a roster spot, but you're not getting any money, or freshmen don't get money, right, or whatever it is." So things to consider. But if you want to go to that school and your parents have this image of, look, my son goes to Yale, my daughter goes to Boston College, and my other son goes to Northwestern, that in their mind looks good to the public. So they might be steering you to go there despite not really understanding, like, you might not play for 4 years. But it just comes down to wants and needs and what do you think is important. And I think a lot of parents miss the mark with that because they get caught up in the image and what's going to look good on the bumper sticker, So that's just real stuff.
Yeah.
Which fires me up.
Yeah. I look at what was there was the viral post, is D2 even real, or is D2 real? And I think that there needs to be, a look that D2 is real. There's phenomenal players. And I think the other thing that people miss too is you look at look at D3. Their skills at D3 are phenomenal. People don't, unless you've really watched D3 programs play, like a high level D3, if you watch Tufts, you go watch Middlebury women. They are a phenomenal program. Those players are all D1 caliber players that decided to play multi-sport athletes or prioritize their academics in a different way. And just because
a life outside of that.
Yeah. And even though that they're playing they're playing just D3 or just D2, they are still have a huge commitment towards lacrosse. It is part of the cycle, but it is not as much of a year-round commitment.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That's a great point. And that, again, it goes back to, what do you want in school? Because Division I lacrosse is a job. Hell, Division II lacrosse is a job. I'm telling you, there's no big hour difference between Division II and Division I. It might be like a difference of like probably 5 hours, which in reality, they could just make OTAs, captain's practice, which aren't actually logged as hours. There's a lot of things that I think people don't understand with the hour piece. But again, you're right. Division III ball, and I can tell you this right now, is super competitive depending on where you go. Again, there's definitely gaps, but same with Division II. I mean, the SSC, in my opinion, is the best Division II conference in the country. Every Tampa's good. I mean, the Florida Southern's good. Maryville's good. I mean, Embry-Riddle's good. These are some really legit programs that have a lot of Division I level talent on the field, and they're also all probably transfers from Division I programs. And again, comes down to this: do you want to go to a Division II and compete for a championship, possibly, or do you want to go to a Division I school that's on the low end and you might not win many games, but you're Division I? I think that's a massive question that a lot of parents and families have to ask themselves, and really the kid has to ask themselves, what do they want? Because you're not going to be happy being a senior night game from Florida on a Wednesday. It's not going to be pretty. So
Yeah. So now we're talking mistakes in recruiting. Like what are some areas that, families make, like common mistakes that families make that you should just be like, hey, this is a
yeah,
red flag, you know,
this is a great.
I've seen it too many times. Let's just save you some time and be like, hey, stop.
You gotta here's some real stuff, and this is gonna be a topic I talk about later after we get past what we're doing this week. But camp chasers, right? You got families out here that will go, let's just say Florida State camp. They'll go to Florida State camp every time they have it, every single time they have it. Okay, that's cool. You're showing interest, but they've already made an evaluation on you after some point, right? They've seen you. And if they've already crossed you off in their mind, they're not going to reach out to you come September 1. But now you've screwed yourself because you've gone to this camp so many times, not knowing, or just actually just camp chasing, just wanting to be at this school for so bad, and you're just hoping that they'll sign you because you've been 100 times. And then September 1 rolls around and they don't call you, and now you're hurt. But now not only have you done that, but now you haven't gone to any other camps because you've gone to the same camp for 30 years, and now you're on any radars for any other camps. So now you're playing catch up all fall because you have not been able to get in front of the schools you were supposed to be getting in front of when you were supposed to be, but also you were chasing that one pipe dream for valuable recruiting time this summer that you should have been mix matching and going different places. And again, I tell kids all the time, like, you don't have to go to the camp 4, 5, 5, 6, 9, 10 times. They've already made an evaluation on you after the first 2 times, period. And again, if you get requested and they email you or we get a phone call, and that's different. But if you've heard nothing and you just chasing a t-shirt, then man, you are going to be in bad hot water come, post September 1, and you ain't on no other coach's radar because you went to the same camp over and over. Same deal with showcases. No offense. I mean, this is again to everybody. Like, you go to the same big time camps or same camps like mine over and over, and those schools aren't a fit for you. Well, now you aren't necessarily getting the responses you need to be getting because you're spending money going places you got no business being at. And then you go back to their fall camp. That to me is ludicrous, like it doesn't make any sense. So I think a lot of families miss the mark on that. Camp chasing is the number one issue, I feel. And again, you can go to those big time camps and you go to those big time school prospect camps, but if you really, are you really that player? Are you really? When it all comes down, like, again, there's levels to this, and no disrespect to anybody out there, but there's levels there. There are levels to this recruiting scheme. So, yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think that's a big thing. Trying to go and fit into all the different aspects constantly can make it challenging. So at these camps, excuse me, how do you show up? How do you prepare? Beforehand, how do you show up so you can stand out at these showcases or events? Like, how do you make yourself a known presence and make yourself visible?
Yeah, I think for one, I'll just say the first thing that helps with standing out on the field, like I said, just from like what you got on. And that's why I don't like making shooter shirts for kids, because I feel like they should wear a different color because then it looks too uniform. You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of camps like, oh, we got you shooter shirts, we can raise the price. But again, that's fine. But how is it? Like, a coach can't remember if they all have on the same shirt and everybody looks the exact same. So, I prefer to have it. Again, you got the uniform, you got shorts, whatever, that are matching what color we say. But you wear your own shooter shirt, rather that be neon green, because you can stand out like, oh, that kid had a neon green shirt on. I won't forget that. Or you had on yellow socks, or, you got on bright cleats. Now you got to back it up if you got the bright cleats on, but at the same time, those are little tidbits I tell kids all the time. And again, and then another thing is, wear that exact same shirt to every prospect camp or showcase you go to, and tournament if you can. If you got more, I like tell people buy 5 or 6 of the same bright T-shirts, so you wear the same shirt over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And that way, parent or coaches are saying, "Okay, I remember this kid neon shirt. She got the same neon shirt every time I see kids neon shirt on." And they're like, "Yeah, I remember you neon shirt." Like it's just little things like that I think go a long way. And again, I have the same conversation with my parents closer to time with what to on the field. I think defensively, communication, being vocal. I mean, those are all things you can't be scared to talk. Like you got to be able to ask questions. I think if you can ask a coach a question during a camp, like say, "Hey, coach," not like, "Coach, what can I do better at?" Like they don't remember because they saw 100 kids, but like during that drill, maybe saying, "Hey, coach, you know, why do you do this drill and how does this help the defense? I just didn't understand what you meant." That way they can explain it to you in those terms versus saying, "How can I improve?" They're going to say stick work because that's the first thing that gets you to walk away from them. That's like filler questions, right? I always tell kids like asking about the drills, you're running and saying, "Hey, like how does this drill fit into XYZ or or whatever it might be." And again, they'll be able to explain that drill to you on the side. And honestly, if you really wanted to be smart, and it's not an IQ thing, but just say, "Hey, coach, how are we running this drill again?" Just for my own memory, and they explain it to you again one on one, and then you say, "Hey, coach, thanks for helping me out," and then whatever it is. But those are good ways to talk to coaches throughout camps, and there's no shame in asking a question to a coach. Like they're there to ask questions too, so take advantage of that because you might not get it again.
Those are really good points. I also think is the big thing is talking on the field, communication. Coaches always love a communicative player, somebody that's going to sit there and talk
Yep.
and be part of the play, and hustle. Don't hang
Yeah.
your head, run. I was at a camp, an event recently, and I watched the goalie. They're a 28, so there was coaches there watching. They let a goal in, and they turned around and they started hitting their stick against the goalpost. This
Yeah.
goalie is phenomenal, and I'm like, you could just see the reaction of the recruiters on the sidelines
Yeah.
change in that moment. And I thought it was a very powerful moment. I almost wish I had it recorded because you
Yeah.
just watched their understanding of that player completely change.
Yeah, like nobody wants a cannon or a loose cannon on the field, right? Like again, you make the net, you make the wrong play. I had a coach tell me back in the day, Loyola guy, he was our high school coach for a little bit, Tim McGinney, great dude. He was like, you only can control two things, in this game. That's your attitude and your effort, right? And if you keep those two things straight, and that's in life too, you're gonna be just fine. But you freaking out and slamming a stick over your head and smashing whatever or throwing your stick across the field, like that's not a good look. And coaches don't have time for that. Especially during tournament ball. I think tournament ball gets way too serious. And I think a lot of coaches, they think like, "Oh, I messed up a play. It's over. It's over," but guys, it's a game of runs. A lot of you need to understand that. So, yeah, body language is everything on the field. And also, having the social skills to talk to coaches and communicate. Like I get there's a lot of quiet, there's a lot of introverts out there, but if you're in this team sport, you can't be an introvert to that extent. You got to be able to get out and talk to people and you know ask questions. So, yep.
So I'm going to ask you this. This is more of a personal question that I love asking
Hmm.
coaches, as well as somebody in your position as an expert in recruiting. If you're looking at a player and you had three different players, one had better stick skills, was phenomenal stick skills. The other one had better field sense, and one was just a phenomenal athlete. Which player would you rather try and help place?
It's a great question. Okay, stick skills, field IQ, or athlete. Man, because I think I'm probably going stick skills, man. Because I think at the end of the day, like lacrosse is a stick skills game, and IQ can be taught to a degree. Athleticism really can't be taught. You either got it or you don't, in my opinion. And everybody's got some form of athletic ability, but at the end of the day, like if you're an athlete but you can't pass or catch, you can't play lacrosse. But if you're an athlete and you can't read the field and know how to, get up and move in transition, like, and how to read a defense and how they're going to react to a fast break. Again, like you can't play because I can't put you on the field. So you can be as athletic as possible, but you're probably gonna be playing defense. That's probably what's going to happen. because it's just the easiest thing to do, right? And the less stick work. But I think I take the stick skills person because I think at the end of the day, a good coach can teach field IQ and you can learn that. And athletic ability in lacrosse, like, I mean, you got to be athletic to play lacrosse, but there's certain positions I feel they can put you in. You know, you could be a crease rat and can't really move, but you catch the ball and shoot and hit it back in the net. Like, that's the same thing. That's all I care about. So I'd probably go stick skills. I think that's the most important thing in lacrosse, period, point blank.
Love it. I love it. I think you're going to get some guff for the comments on defense. I will point out that you were a defensive player. So
I was, and I didn't have great stick skills. So that's why I can say that. I did not have the best stick, and I knew that, but I worked on it. But at the same time, like, and again, the game's changing. A lot of these defenders now move like offensive players. So I'm not going to sit there and say, the stick skills, defenders don't necessarily have stick skills. They definitely do. That's really important. But at the same time, like, I mean, the stick skills and offense, I think, are just go hand in hand. And again, you got to be able to catch and pass. You can't do that in lacrosse. You can't play the game. But again, there's defenders who have better sticks than offensive players. And they normally play like long to midfield or they play, midfield. So just depends.
that's awesome. All right. So the clock is starting to tick for the 2028. And they may not realize that. But this summer coming up is going to be a big summer for them.
Yeah.
And as a 2028 going into this summer, and your lacrosse season is about to start for most high school kids. It's right around the corner. We're in the countdown mode. What should a 2028 be doing? Where should they be registering for certain things? Should they, like what platforms should they be looking at? What do they have to register with the NCAA? What type of movements do they need to be making to set themselves up for success? That makes, if you go to a showcase or if you go to reach out to a recruiter such as yourself, what would make your job easier if they had already clicked these boxes?
Man, I think this is a great one because I actually had a potential client we were talking to, and again, we were going through her sports recruits page. I think that's just how the game is. Like, that has to be organized, man. Like, the fact that some people have sports recruits pages and there's nothing on there but a profile picture and their club team is ludicrous. Like, your sports recruits page is your resume. I'm telling you, it just, you need to have that up to date. I think that's something, if I was a 28, I'd have that all buckled up and dialed in now, like while you're in the springtime, getting that all together, organizing it, making the picture and getting the film you need from, this past, January or whatever camps you went to, and making short reels and just keeping it updated. It's literally like a resume. It's your profile. So that's important. The second thing I would be doing if I'm registering for camps, I would pick one of the big ones. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to get sued, but you know the ones that I'm talking about. One of the big camps, because the rest are all this, they're all the same. Okay. So you don't have to go to, two big camps, the ones I'm talking about, and then go to, all five of them. I think that's a waste of money. I think you'd pick two of them, one to two of them. And then, I consider us, to be honest, I consider us more of like a mid-level camp. I think that's another one. Capitalize on one of those. And then maybe if you want to attend another big camp at the end of the summer, so be it. But really, truthfully, I think if you're going to do it right, you got your tournaments, 2 to 3 showcases, like the big ones, like the ones, I'm not saying big, but like the ones that have a variety of schools, right? So it's 10 to 12 schools there, whether it be Division I, whatever it is. One of those types of showcases. And then, you pick a prospect camp or two if you can, but like I said, at the same time, your prospect camp list is going to need to make sense come August because that's the most important time of the year. So I tell people, don't burn your money, on prospect camps and showcases and all that, going to the wrong thing. Wait to get the feedback on where you should go because that might change the trajectory of how you land, right? You go to Florida State camp for the 15th time when you should have went to High Point camp because they said they want to get a better look at you and that's more where you fit. Then we might blow our chance and when I get that back, right? So August is a very strategic month. I tell people save your money for August because you might have to go to 2 or 3 camps if you can, but at the same time, they're all on the same day. So if we can hit up, 1 or 2 prior to September 1, August is always great. But like I said, planning your summer schedule out now is important. and also getting your sports recruits page and your grades need to be good too. So that's another thing. Pre-reads are about to start. So we still got some time, but I know like when we were dealing with Stanford, we ended up not getting in because of grades, right? So your grades are super super important, especially for those Ivy League schools and your NESCATs. Grades need to be on point because you can't and that's another thing. Like you can't go to that school. You ain't need to go to their camp. You know what I mean? So it doesn't make any sense to go to Princeton camp. If you academically can't get in, it wouldn't even matter, right? So, those are things I would look at. And your academic advisor at your school should be able to tell you, you have the grades to get into this school or you don't. So I'd be going to visit them and getting an idea, and that would help you to better, you know, schedule out your summer. Because if you can't go there, then no sense in going or look or I almost said a camp. Uh, sorry.
Yeah, I think if they're watching this program, they know what the bigger camps are, and I can
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of really really well known big camps out there, that have all the top coaches at, and that brings up a thing. So these bigger camps that have all the coaches from all the D1 schools, they're all there.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I actually learned from you that I think is
Yeah.
really interesting is
I'm
that
always learning from you.
that I learned from you
Yeah.
is that these coaches are paid to go to these camps and
Yeah.
showcases. It's not that they're going to be there as an opportunity to just recruit, but it's
Mhm.
actually a financial move for them as well.
Absolutely.
And I'd love for you if you could, talk a little bit about that aspect and
Sure.
kind of how that works, right? How do you decide who to bring into what camp and what showcase and the decisions that these coaches have to make?
For sure. And this is the thing that I think I touched on a little bit the other day on a video when we had a parent ask about, or not parent, excuse me, a coach asked about how we pay coaches, right? Listen, there ain't a showcase out here that's not paying coaches. Period, point blank. These coaches are paid to go to these camps, or else they would not be going. So a Division I coach can get anywhere from, I think, when I was talking with the Stanford coach, she told me the highest coach paid amount she ever got was like 4K for a camp. Do you know how much that is? That's a lot of money for one coach. So imagine times that by, however many other coaches got that same exact rate. We go about it more of like a fairness route. I know again, and some people like to stagger it D1, D2, D3, and that depends on your check. I know a lot of other showcases will do head coach gets this, the coach gets that. But in my personal opinion, most of the time the assistant coach normally does most of the recruiting and a lot more of the legwork. So that to me doesn't make any sense. But I get it. Decision makers are the head coach, but again, you do what you want. We pay people the same rate. We don't believe that makes any type of sense. Because personally, for me, I think it should be fair, and I know a lot of coaches appreciate that. Especially the D2s and the Division 3s, and even those mid-major Division 1s that might not get the same amount as a Power 5 school. So I get it, but also the Power 5 schools do bring in the kids most times, and that's the trade off for them, but at the same time, if that's the case, then just run your own camp and don't go anywhere else. That's how I see it. But yeah, you're right. A lot of coaches do get paid to go certain places. But if I'm a college coach, I would look at the company. Like, don't just look at the money. Like, look at what that company stands for. Look at what they're actually doing. Are they truly growing the game, or are they just taking a check, cutting you a check, and you just coming in and you're not a cog in the wheel, right? Like ask those questions. Now, how are you treated at these camps? Sometimes these directors, they don't really take care of their coaches, or they don't do extra things for their coaches, or do things, to accommodate them. So I say, look at the company. Don't get caught up with the money. Like if the relationship between you and that director is great, like I think sometimes that should outweigh like my stipend. That's just my personal opinion, but I get it. Again, people got to be paid, and I think every coach should get paid to go to camps. But that's just the way it works, and we have to roll with those. Rules and regulations. But yeah, the coaches getting paid is a very common thing. So people who think showcases are just printing cash, it's not necessarily true. These coaches are very expensive, but at the same time, private equity has taken over youth sports, so it's not going to change ever, probably.
Yeah, that's an interesting part is youth sports is become very commercial. And
Yeah,
it has become quote unquote a money grab, as people like to call it.
absolutely.
And I think that's something to look at is within showcases and clubs as well. Is the club team you're joining, are they a franchised club, right? There are
Yeah,
benefits to being in a franchise club. You look at some of the larger clubs where you can then be on their national team, which is quite a view. You get to get seen, you get to be an opportunity to be aware. And same with showcases. There are smaller independent showcases out there that their goal, I'll give you a shout out here, that actually care about the results of the players coming in. And I think that's one of the reasons you and I hit it off so well, is
yeah,
because I see what you care and how you're trying to actually help grow the game and help players not go through what you went through.
bingo,
um and um and then there's larger camps that they are built to make money, and
100%.
that's and it's not actually in the benefit of the player. So using your time and your money well is super important for these young athletes.
Absolutely. And I tell parents all the time, like, look, like, I'm not trying to steer you from the crowd. I'm not trying to, because if your director's pushing you to go to this camp, like, ask them why. Like, ask them, why do you want me to go to this big camp? Because if I feel you're a Division I player, and I've heard from these schools, like, they need to be able to explain that to you. But if they're just saying go there because that's where all the quote unquote clout is, that don't make any sense. But you won't send them to a camp that you've never heard of because you don't know much about it. Well, do some research, man or woman. Like, there's a lot of great companies out there, and I'm not saying that for Backyard. I think there's a lot of other independent showcases that are doing it right, and then they're actually bringing in realistic schools. Because I could easily go and call the top 25 and pay them $3,000 and take a bank loan out and probably make a bunch of money. But I'm not going to do that because I know that's not realistic for the type of market that I'm in. I know my kids deserve better than, and these families deserve better than that. So we really do try to bring in schools that I think are obtainable. Now, again, do we have some bigger schools on the list sometimes? Yeah, but you never know. Diamond in the rough kids get picked up all the time for big time rosters. So that's why we push that hidden gems, diamond in the rough agenda, which I truly believe is every kid that's came through our camps. That's just our MO. So I'm not trying to be the elite, but I do think we got some diamonds. I'll give us that,
I yeah. I love that. I think there was a great example that you had where the coach from Oregon was at one of your clinics, and they saw a player and that wasn't even on their radar,
What?
and they were like, "Oh yeah, I want this player."
And they only took 6 kids, and they watched how many kids this whole summer at a camp that had 30 people at it. Again, it's one of the craziest stories that ever happened to us. I ain't the only one, but I definitely agree, like, it all comes down to value and what you're getting out of it. I don't think coaches can really get a good read when there's 300 kids on the field and you're rotating through. That is it's a lot. It's a lot, but hey, maybe they are. What I've heard, they aren't, but like I said, it just depends. But everybody's chasing the cloud, and they want to be the elite, and they want this, and they want the swag, and they want these coaches really truly do not care if you attend the top events. They really don't. They just want to know what you can do for them, and how can you come in and be an impact player early. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can go to all that name brand stuff. I mean, hey, you got I save your money. That's what I tell people. Save your money.
It almost sounds like the theme of this whole conversation is don't chase the name, right? You just name of the school, the name of the camp,
Right,
the logo, the clout that comes with that name. Make that
right.
decision that's right and best for you.
And again, there are some camps that should be named. Like, there are, like, again, there's some big time camps that should make it hard to get in. But again, if it's 400 kids there, there's only 200 kids that are truly like the top 200 in the country. And I think everybody pretty much knows who those kids are. So get those kids and put them in their own type of circuit and camp, and you can get them there, or whatever it is that you guys do to get the quote unquote best kids. But for the majority of us, there's a lot of kids out here that need homes. There's a lot of other great programs, but if we're focusing on top 25 alone, I mean, there's what, 6 spots times about 25. I mean, I don't know the math on that, but and a lot of opportunity. And you're gonna see this too. And before I forget this, you're gonna start to see coaches maybe not max their roster out, right? So what that means is, with the roster cap being 38, you might see coaches not take 38 kids because they don't either A, need 38 players in their roster. They're going to save that money for the portal, or they're going to save it for traveling or whatever it is. But again, I'm hearing coaches think 38's too many kids. So the opportunities to play Division I lacrosse are getting tighter and tighter, and it's only going to get smaller, especially with the way some of these schools are really in financial trouble trying to keep up with Power Five conferences. You're going to see that happen, and you're going to see a lot of more roster spots maybe come down to 3 freshmen, right, or whatever it is. Right now, it's 6. So imagine if it gets to 3. Sorry, you're probably not going to be able to do.
Yeah, that makes a big difference in the recruiting circle and for players when they're trying to decide where to go. All right, but before we end for the day, if somebody listening wants help or clarity on any of their recruiting path, what is the best next steps for them?
Man, I think there's a lot of good people out there. And again, I don't want to sell myself because I hate to be a salesman, but I'm saying like, look, I'm not gonna we're not gonna steer you wrong. We're not somebody who is gonna tell you the great things and just to make a check. Like, I truly want the best for you, and whatever that looks like. You've seen our commitments. Like, we're not always getting 5-star commitments at big time programs, so it's all over the place. So if they want clarity to help, I mean, there's other great recruiters out there that, do a fantastic job, but make sure you do your homework on these people, right? Because a lot of people say they got these connections and they really don't, and I hate for a kid to go to a school or sign with a recruiter hoping that they're going to do all these things for them and get them to play top 25 ball. And that doesn't happen. Now they're mad because they spent 10 grand. Like that can't happen. So I think you need to do your homework on these recruiters. I think you should be able to find them. I think, if they're hiding behind a private account and you don't really know who they are, but you're going to go off a whim because so-and-so told you to, I think that's risky sometimes. So do your homework. I also think they need to be up to date, with the recruiting tactics, because the game changed. And I think you're going to see a lot of this with a lot of the older clubs because they've been doing the same damn thing for years, and the recruiting game has changed, and the staffs are getting younger, and the communication piece is dwindling. Whereas a lot of old school was phone calls and all this stuff, but now it's like text messages, and if you're not a good texter, then just different things like that. So I think you need to do your homework on your recruiters, and also that they need to be available. Like, if you hear from them once a month, or they say we can only talk these amount of times throughout our visits, that's not going to work. You only get 10 times to talk to me via video chat, and that's it. Like, that's not. I talk to some of my parents like twice a day. It just depends on what we got going on. Depends on time of year. Or once a day. So a lot goes into it, and I think, the ones that are in your corner are the ones that are going to ride with you no matter what decide to do commitment-wise. So do your homework is really what I'm saying.
All right. Now, as a complete opposite, let's
Yeah.
say somebody financially looks and they go, I don't know if I can afford a recruiter, or I'm nervous about these efforts. Can they do this on their own? Are there steps?
Absolutely.
And what would be some of the, just if you were going to be like, all right, if you're going to do this on your own, these are the 3 things that you have to do.
If you're gonna do this on your own, and I'm just gonna say, if you're not playing club lacrosse and you don't have a recruiter, and you're on a limited budget, you need to really sit down with your parents and say, hey, mom and dad, like, I don't think Division I lacrosse is for me, or whatever it is, but I do think Division II is. Now, what can we go to that we can afford that's gonna make sense? And that's gonna be prospect camps. Like, I wouldn't even waste time going to tournaments if you're not going to club team. Well, you wouldn't be going to tournaments because you're not on a club team. So your prospect camps, maybe there's a showcase that's within 3 or 4 hours your parents can get you to. I know like Florida Futures has been a massive, help for a lot of kids that we deal with, because again, a lot of them either they can afford it, but a lot of them, we've scholarshiped in haven't been able to afford it, but they got to look and they got picked up, so that's important to do. And also look at the schools in your backyard. If you're in a city, if you're in Florida, there's plenty of lacrosse options college wise. But if you're like in, Idaho, you might want to start to look at, what's the nearest schools and who offers lacrosse. And it depends on how far you want to go and everything. And you can do it on your own. I did it on my own for the most part. I mean, hey, this was a wild, wild west when I was going through the process, which is why I do it now. But you just got to do your homework, and you got to email. Email is going to be your best friend. And then come September 1, you can reach out to coaches on the phone. So call their office line or whatever it might be, but at the same time, Maybe even lean on your high school coach, see who they know. If they don't know anybody, call me. Like I said, we'll be able to pull some strings and get you to what you need. But like I said, we've always been somebody, like, if you want it, if you really want it and you want it, we'll make it happen for you. So, yeah.
Now, are the days gone of if you're truly a talented player, the coaches will find you?
Yeah, I would say if you're not in a hotbed, yes. Like if you're in Long Island and you're just dominating the high school scene in Long Island, you're probably fine. Or whatever, Jersey, Philly, you're probably fine. People are gonna be talking about you anyways, or they're gonna be trying to recruit you to their club team to talk about you. So I think the days of if you're the best player in Tennessee, it's probably not gonna really do much at the end of the day, because again, coaches are looking at, okay, from Tennessee, they're probably playing watered down talent or whatever it might be. And I'm only saying this because I came from Tennessee, so I'm using it as an example. Like the talent level is nowhere near what it is compared to, other cities. So, yeah, I would say if you think talent alone is going to get you picked up, that's not happening, because everybody thinks they're talented, but it comes down to advocacy. It comes down to who can call, who can make those calls, who has relationships, who can get you in front of the right people, and who can get you the answers you're looking for. And that's not going to come from you playing good lacrosse. Like if you're a good player, if you're a good player, I can pick up that phone and call anybody in the country, and they should be able to say, hey, yeah, I'd take her right now, or I'd take him right now. So it takes somebody to make the calls. I don't care how good you are. You can put up 1,000 highlights, but you got to know people in this industry, and that's in any recruiting space.
Yeah, that's super helpful and good to know. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Brian. It's great, as always, chatting with you. And I look forward to seeing what you've got coming. I heard there's a camp coming to Colorado, so we'll keep our eyes out for that. And look forward to seeing you here in the Square State.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to get out to Colorado. It's been a long time, but excited, and like I said, I really appreciate you, having me on the show. And if you need anything from me, man, you got my number and an email, whatever. I'm sure we'll be talking sometime again today. So,
all right.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Colorado Lacrosse News Podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on social, and visit coloradolacrosse.news for rankings, features, and full episode coverage.